Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So I recorded a video about 15 minutes long talking about the weekend's racing, and then looked at my microphone, which is to my right, and I saw that I had left it on mute. So I've changed how I'm doing it. I've combining two videos, but we're actually still going to get two videos. I'm combining the analysis or review from the weekend with the new handicap mark video that I normally do. But there's quite a lot to talk about. If you can see all my tabs at the very top here, these are all tabs I'm going to be talking about. So I'm still going to break them down into two videos. So we'll start off looking at the first race, or the second race, sorry, Aintree. First race that we're going to talk about was where Remastered won the Potemkin qualifier. He was very impressive. He went from the front, and yeah, he moved into the front nicely. He jumped really well. He hurdled really well. And I was very confident a long way out that he was going to win. I thought it was a clever ride, actually, from David Noonan, who went for home, turning into the straight. It was quite clever, considering all of the others were also having their first run. So if there was any horses that weren't quite fully fit, then they were going to be found out towards the finish. You know, they might close on him and then drop away again. And, you know, nothing actually got close to Remastered. He has just been announced as one of the latest acceptors for the Coral Gold Cup, which is the former Ladbroke Trophy, which is the former Hennessy. I think that's where he'll go now. He was obviously going really well last year when falling 4 out, I think. And he would definitely have a chance there. He goes there in, you know, really good form, clearly. There wasn't anything really from this race that I was that interested in. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Remastered. The second race that I wanted to talk about was the Sefton, won by Al Dancer, who I was concerned about his jumping going into this because he generally makes a mistake. He didn't make one mistake and jumped really well. I think the fences, you know, forced him to jump really well, and he was a good winner. He didn't win by far. I think he's gone up £4 or £5. I could certainly think if they could find another handicap of a similar ilk, he could go very close in that. You know, maybe even come back for not the Beecher, probably the Topham in April. There was a few behind that I am interested in, and we'll talk about those now. So the first one is good old Spirit of the Games, who finished 6th, which was kind of what we was expecting. Thought he'd run on reasonably well, but not quite get there, and he needs a couple of pounds. Now, where he's really good is at Cheltenham, we know that. And he dropped £2 for that to 134. Well, his 2 runs here, where he was third and third, in March and January of this year. So it's not like they were, you know, years ago. In March and January of this year, he finished third off 136 and 137. Well, he could run off 134 next time after being dropped £2. He's not going to run at the weekend, but surely he comes back for this race on Saturday, the 10th of December. The Racing Post Gold Cup. Used to be the Caspian Caviar. Now it's the Racing Post Gold Cup. Yeah, I think he would go very close in that. We know he likes Cheltenham. He's got some good form at Cheltenham. And he's now, I said before Aintree, I wanted him to drop just a couple more pounds before I really got involved and got interested in him. He has now dropped those £2, and surely he goes back to Cheltenham next time. The next horse that I want to talk about also came from that race, and that was Jacamar. Jacamar has dropped £3 to 134, and I thought that was kind to Jacamar to drop him, you know, that quickly. I'm not totally sure he liked the soft stroke heavy going, and he didn't seem to get home. That long running just seemed to just sap his stamina a little bit towards the finish. He's got some decent form though. You know, he beat Mr. Coffee previously at Kempton. And I'm a big fan of Mr. Coffee. I still believe he's going to win a big race. And I think that's where I'd like to see Jacamar next. There's this race in November, 21st of November, Monday the 21st. There's a 2.5 mile handicap for 0 to 35. Well, Jacamar is third, 134. If we look at last year's race, this was it here. Gautreau Joe, Mercy and Prince, Vision to Flow. If you put Jacamar in that, I'd be very confident of Jacamar, you know, winning that race. So hopefully he can get similar competition and go back to Kempton, where he's won before, where he beat Mr. Coffee, And I think the shorter running will suit him over that 2.5 mile trip. One more horse I want to talk about from that race was Senior Citizen. Now, last year he finished second in the Sefton, and I thought he was given a brilliant ride for second. This year, I think he was given a terrible ride. Well, it was either a terrible ride or it was a perfect ride based on instructions. He didn't do anything. He dropped him out the back and never got involved, never closed up, never asked him to close up. Horses were being pushed along in front of him, and Adrian Heskin is still waiting at the back, not doing anything. The handicapper dropped him a whopping £5 for that. And that really caught my eye. If they'd only dropped him £1, it'd have been, well, he's only dropped £1. He dropped him £5 back to 135. And I found a race for him. It's this one here. Now, it's not an easy race at all, but his handicap mark would encourage me to run here at Newbury. So this was it last year. Where would I think Senior Citizen would finish here? Probably second or third. Fanny and Destravel on the day was very, very good, and was clearly ahead of his mark. But I think Senior Citizen could certainly run a big race there. And if we look at Senior Citizen's form, he's got a third at Newbury. He's got a fourth at Newbury, both in the same race, which is in the March. Neither race was he beaten that far. He was beaten far enough in March of 2022, but he finished close up in 2021. But he's dropped in the handicap since then. He's back to 135. I think he was fourth here off 134. Yes, I think, if he bumps into a Fanny and Destravel, he would probably not beat a Fanny and Destravel, or a handicapper of that sort, that's clearly ahead of its mark, which I remember talking about Fanny on this day and saying he was very, very well handicapped. If he came up against horses of the rest of the quality in that race, I think Senior Citizen could go very close off that 135 mark. And I'm definitely keeping an eye out for him next time, hopefully if he goes to Newbury. We'll move on to the 2.5 mile race, which Brewing Up a Storm unseated at the first. Good stuff, Sean Bowen. It wasn't his fault. The horse just jinked. Consummate professional Brewing Up a Storm, and he jinked, which was disappointing for favourite backers. Dash or Drasher made made most after that. I think Voix de Rev did head Dash or Drasher, but I think didn't quite stay. And Langadan was surely out for the run. I don't believe he was fully fit at all. So with that in mind, there's two that I think are interesting going forward. Voix de Rev, when he drops back to 2 mile, is going to be very, very good because he's only rated 135, I think now. There's a couple of races that I really like for him. And they're obvious ones. Back here, he was finishing second in January and February. That's where I'd go. I think he wants 2 mile. And there's a couple of races. He finished second in the Hogmanay Hurdle and he finished second in the Scottish County Hurdle. Surely that's where he's got to go back. Pick up 30 grand if he can win both of those. And I think off his handicap mark, he certainly can. The first one is on Sunday, the 1st of January. The Hogmanay Hurdle here. Yeah, that's where I hope to see Voix de Rev. I hope they drop him back in trip now. Back to that 2 mile. And I think he'll go very, very close. I mean, his fourth in the Scottish Champion Hurdle was a good effort. Travelled really well when being held up. But these two races are just slightly easier than the Scottish Champion Hurdle, and I would expect him to go very close in those. The final horse I want to talk about in this part of the video is Langadan. Now, as I said, I think Langadan, that was purely out for the run. Fitness, I can't imagine he was fit at all. Hadn't run for 211 days and faded late on. That's not the Langadan. I think they're probably looking at a feature handicap with him. What feature handicap? Maybe this one, if this classes as a feature handicap. They had, obviously, Chitabello in 2021 as top rated. So they might be thinking, we were disappointed that day not to win it. Let's go back and try and win it this year. It's at Newbury. It's over 2.5 mile. It's 22 grand for the winner. Here it is here on Saturday, the 26th of November. That gives him 18 days from today. So what's that? 21 days, which I think is about perfect for Langadan. and that's where I hope to see him at Newbury in 3 weeks' time. So that's part one of this video. I've got through half of the tabs at the top, and we'll talk about the second half group of tabs at the top in the second video.